Epidemics are like shadows. They arrive silently, spread in darkness, and by the time we notice them, it's already too late. Throughout history, mankind has battled these invisible enemies, believing each outbreak to be random, a cruel twist of nature's design. But what if something more deliberate lurks behind these waves of devastation? What if, behind every great plague in history, there stands a figure, a timeless face that traverses centuries not as a witness, but as a herald? This is the story of the last man who saw that face before he became it.
Welcome, curious soul, to Tales of the Tattered Book. I'm your host, the keeper of the book, guardian of an ancient tome whose pages fill themselves with stories of terror and wonder. Each week, as midnight approaches, this mysterious book reveals new tales of horror, some pulled from history's darkest corners, while others seep through cracks in reality that most will never perceive. As I open this arcane tome, remember, knowledge comes at a price, and some truths are better left unspoken. Tonight, the Tattered Book reveals a tale of patterns within patterns. We follow the Italian-American Marco Ricci, whose investigation into an emerging pathogen leads him down corridors both literal and metaphorical, into the depths of an abandoned hospital where the boundaries between healer and harbinger begin to blur. Steel yourself, dear listeners, for part 1 of Il Monatto, Harbinger of Pestilence. Let the story begins.
I'm going to start this personal log to keep track of, well, everything that's happening. My name is Dr. Marco Ricci, WHO, Emerging Pathogens Division. Today is September 28th, 2019. Time is 23:47. The reason I'm doing this is because I received something earlier today that's got me completely rattled. Dr. Liu Wei from the Chinese CDC sent me an encrypted email. Not through official channels, but through our private secure connection we established during the H7N9 outbreak back in 2013. He knows I specialize in unusual respiratory cluster patterns, but this isn't official WHO business. Liu's message was brief. Marco, I need your eyes on something. 2 cases, completely unknown pathogen. This cannot go through normal reporting channels yet. Trust me on this. The attached files show 2 patients in Wuhan, both admitted in early September with severe atypical pneumonia. No connection to each other, no travel history, no obvious source of infection. But the clinical presentation, Jesus, it's unlike anything I've seen. Rapid progression from mild respiratory symptoms to complete systemic failure in less than 72 hours. What's keeping me awake isn't just the symptom profile. It's the genetic sequencing Liu managed to get. He ran it through local databases, found nothing. No matches to any known human or animal coronavirus. But there's something in the nucleotide arrangement that appears almost deliberate, almost like a signature. I've been tracking unusual respiratory clusters for 15 years. Since it became personal to me. But this, the efficiency of progression, the way it seems designed to spread before symptoms appear, it's too purposeful. Liu's final line in his email, I find it quite disturbing. It reads, if my suspicions are correct, this won't stay contained to 2 cases. I need to know if you've seen anything like this before. Anywhere. Any time period.
Anywhere, any time period. I got an idea.
I want to run this through the Historical Pathogen Database project. We've been collecting DNA from historical epidemic victims, plague pits, mass graves, preserved specimens. I know this is a ridiculous idea.
A novel coronavirus shouldn't match ancient plague sample, but what the hell?
The system found a partial match, connecting the Wuhan pathogen genetic markers with samples from Venice, 1630. That's impossible. This is Dr. Marco Ricci. Today is October 3rd, 2019. Time is 14:22. I've hit a wall with this genetic analysis, and frankly, I'm starting to question my own sanity. Since I discovered it yesterday, I've triple-checked everything. I've tried different sampling methods, different reference databases, even borrowed time on the CDC's supercomputers. Always the same result. This is either the most revolutionary discovery in epidemiological history, or I'm having some kind of breakdown. If I want to discover more, I would need historical context, or maybe someone who understands the nuances of historical outbreaks, not just the molecular biology. But who the hell can I contact about something this insane?
Wait,
Alessandro Lombardi, professor at the University of Padua. We met at that World Health Organization conference on historical pandemics 3 years ago. He specializes in connecting modern epidemiology with historical documentation. Smart guy, really passionate about his work. I remember him saying, what was it? The answers to tomorrow's pandemics might be hidden in yesterday's. We've exchanged emails occasionally since then, mostly sharing academic papers. This is exactly the kind of cross-disciplinary insight I need. I'll contact him right now. Dear Alessandro, I hope this message finds you well. I'm reaching out because I've encountered something in my current research that could benefit from your expertise. I'm analyzing genetic sequences from a novel respiratory pathogen in China, and I've found an unexpected connection to historical plague samples from northern Italy, specifically the 17th century. I know this sounds impossible, but I'm hoping your knowledge in historical epidemiology might help me understand what I'm seeing. Do you have any records, documents, or research related to unusual patterns in the 1630 Venetian Plague outbreak? Any anomalies in the historical record that didn't fit typical plague progression? I realize this is an unusual request, but I would greatly appreciate any insights you might have. Best regards, Marco Ricci. Sending now. Hopefully he doesn't think I've lost my mind. Alessandro came through faster than I expected. This morning, he emailed me scans from the 1630 outbreak. Most of it's exactly what you'd expect. Bureaucratic reports, hospital logs, death counts. Nothing unusual. There's this treatise blaming the plague on bad air and planetary alignments. Typical medieval thinking. But he also included something he called probably not useful. A personal diary from a physician named Antonio Vivarini. Alessandro has only translated the medical portions, symptom descriptions, treatment attempts. He said most of the rest is feverish rambling, since Vivarini probably caught the plague while writing. The translated parts are what you'd expect from a medical journal, but there are whole sections Alessandro dismissed as delirious writing. Unfortunately, my Italian isn't good enough to fully understand the original text written in an old Italian dialect. Maybe it's better if I call him and ask him directly about those untranslated portions.
Marco, good to hear from you. How are you finding the documents?
Alessandro, thank you so much for sending this. Most of them are exactly what I expected.
But I'm curious about that Vivarini diary you mentioned.
The untranslated section, can you tell me more about what's in there?
Marco, it's mostly delirium, honestly. The ravings of a dying man. He starts describing visions, hallucinations, something about a plague bearer with an unusual mask. Nothing medically relevant, I'm afraid.
I know, but there is something in those untranslated pages that keeps drawing me back. Could you help me with a rough translation of the section beginning around March 12th?
Marco, that's quite a bit of work for what's essentially medieval fantasy. He was clearly feverish when he wrote this.
I understand. But would you mind translating it anyway? As a professional courtesy?
Very well. Give me a few days. But don't expect scientific revelations.
This is Dr. Marco Ricci, October 10th, 2019. Time 21:30. Alessandro finally sent me the full translation of the Vivarini diary. This document is something I gotta say. The handwriting becomes increasingly erratic as the pages progress. The ink is blotched in places, as if the writer's hands were shaking or sweating with fever. El Monatto elgera solo, silenzioso come un'ombra sull'acqua. La sua maschera, quel terribil viso col becco che noi altri miedeghi portemmo, la pareva parte de lui, no una maschera ma carne. Roughly translated, the plague bearer was alone, silent as a shadow on the water. His mask, that terrible beaked face that we physicians wear, seemed part of him, not a mask, but flesh. El sega avvicina al barcaiolo, ego sentio solo, I morti cammina tra noi altri. He approached the boatman, and I heard only, the dead walk among us.
Twelfth day of March, Anno Domini, 1630. I, Dr. Antonio Vivarini, record these observations with steady hand, though my heart grows heavy with each passing day. The pestilence which has already laid waste to Milan now spreads its black wings over our most serene republic. My beautiful Venezia has transformed over these past weeks. What was once the greatest merchant empire in Christendom now resembles a charnel house. Cats and dogs lie dead in the streets, their bodies bloated with corruption. The very air tastes of death and smoke. We consume vast quantities of aromatic woods, hoping to purify the miasma that spreads this curse. The provveditori alla sanità work without rest, issuing ordinances and organizing the removal of the afflicted to the Lazaretto Vecchio. From my window overlooking the Rio di San Lorenzo, I watch the grim procession of boats carrying the sick and dying to that island of suffering. The bells toll constantly now, not for prayer but for the dead. The Monatti work in groups of 4 or 5, calling through the narrow Kali with their terrible cry. Bring out your dead, bring out your dying. These men, once the lowest of society, now hold dominion over life and death. Some have grown drunk on their newfound power, demanding bribes from families to remove their loved ones quickly. Others simply drink themselves into oblivion each night. In my efforts to save what souls I can, I have treated 63 cases this week alone. The symptoms have become a constant sight now. The buboes appear first beneath the arms or in the groin, hard as stones, black as coal. The fever follows swiftly, bringing delirium and the terrible thirst that no amount of water can quench. Few recover. Those who do speak of dreams filled with darkness and whispered voices calling them to water's edge. 16th day of March, Anno Domini 1630. Something disturbs my scientific mind. Yesterday, while attending to the Grimani household near Rialto, I observed a Monatto who did not fit the usual pattern. while his companions worked together, shouting and cursing as they loaded the dead. This one moved alone, in silence. From across the campo, I could see his protective garb appeared different, more fitted to his body, as if tailored specifically for his form. The leather seemed to move with him, almost as if it had grown to match his shape perfectly. And the way he moved, it struck me profoundly. It was deliberate, measured. He selected bodies with particular care, examining each corpse before deciding whether to take it. His colleagues showed no such discrimination. The dead were simply cargo to them, but this one seemed to be selecting specific bodies, searching for something in particular. When our eyes met across the campo, I felt a chill that penetrated deeper than March wind off the lagoon. He tilted his head, studying me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Then, slowly, deliberately, he raised one gloved hand in what might have been greeting or warning. I did not sleep that night. 20th day of March, Anno Domini 1630. Since last time I wrote in this journal, I have seen him thrice more, always alone, always silent. The other Monatti seem to pay him no heed, going about their grim work while he pursues his own mysterious agenda. Last night I witnessed something that I cannot explain. I was in my consulting room overlooking the Canal Grande, treating a young merchant named Alvise Bragadin. His fever had broken the previous day, and I had hoped he might be among the fortunate few to recover. As we discussed his improving condition, Bragadin moved to the window, drawn by some sound from the canal below. I joined him there and saw the solitary Monatto in a gondola, poling slowly through the dark water. He stopped directly below our window and looked up at us. I felt that familiar chill, but Bragadin's reaction was different. His expression changed from curiosity to fascination, to something I can only describe as longing. Before I could stop him, he murmured something about needing air and left my chambers. I rushed to the window and watched in horror as Bragadin emerged from the building below. He walked to the water's edge where the Monatto waited. They spoke, or rather, the Monatto seemed to whisper something while Bragadin listened intently, nodding. Then the Monatto placed one leather-clad hand on Bragadin's shoulder. The merchant returned to my chambers 20 minutes later, claiming he had merely needed fresh air. But something had changed. His eyes held a distant look, and when I examined him, his pulse was irregular, his breathing shallow. I sent him home with instructions to rest, but I feared the worst. "22nd day of March, Anno Domini 1630. My fears were justified in the most horrible manner. Bragadin's condition deteriorated rapidly over the next day. When I visited his home near the Ponte dei Sospiri, I found him in the grip of a fever more violent than any I had witnessed. He coughed constantly, bringing up blood that was almost black. The babos under his arms had swollen to the size of hen's eggs and turned a putrid green. He never stopped rambling. Among the incoherent word, I have heard something. I am writing them down here in this journal, for they haunt me still. He spoke constantly of walking with the shadows and serving the eternal work. When lucid, he begged me to ensure that the right Monatto would come for him when his time arrived. He died at dawn on the 22nd day, blood streaming from his mouth and nose. His final words are whispered, "I morti camminano, con noi altri." Following protocol, I sent word to the magistrates for a Monatto crew to collect the body. I remained with the grieving family, preparing the necessary documentation. But when the door opened, it was not a crew that entered. It was him. The solitary Monatto. I did not summon you specifically, I said. The other crews can handle this collection. He said nothing. He simply stood in the doorway, breathing heavily through that beaked mask. The sound was rhythmic, almost hypnotic, like bellows working slowly. Up close, I could see that his coat was indeed different. The leather seemed to have a texture unlike any I had seen, almost organic, as if it had once been alive. The family has paid for proper collection, I continued, trying to maintain some semblance of control. You should not. But my protests died in my throat as he moved past me toward Bragadin's corpse. I found myself sitting down heavily in a nearby chair, my legs suddenly weak. He examined the body with the same careful attention I had observed from afar, running his hands over the swollen buboes and the discolored skin. Then he lifted Bragadin, as if the corpse weighed nothing at all. As he passed me on his way out, carrying my former patient, I caught a glimpse of his mask in the lamplight. The beak was longer than regulation required, crafted with disturbing artistry. The leather seemed to ripple slightly as if breathing. I said nothing to stop him, God forgive me. I was too frightened to interfere. But as he reached the door, he paused and turned the terrible mask toward me. For a long moment, we regarded each other in silence. Then, in a voice that seemed to come from somewhere far deeper than his throat, he whispered,
I morti camminano, con noi altri.
I knew with absolute certainty that he was not speaking of the corpse he carried. May God preserve my soul, for I fear what tomorrow's darkness may bring. "26th day of March, Anno Domini 1630. 26th day of March, Anno Domini 1630. The hand that writes these words trembles now, not from fever, but from fear. I have made a terrible discovery. I have been documenting the appearances of this solitary Monatto, and a pattern emerges that defies all natural law. I followed him. God help me, I followed him through the narrow alley, keeping to the shadows. Each person who encounters him, each person who responds to his silent call, dies within mere days of a particularly virulent form of the pestilence. Not the usual progression we physicians know, but something more aggressive, and their bodies are always collected by him alone, never by the regular crews. The other Monatti claim they receive no summons to these particular houses, as if death itself has already claimed its due through its chosen servant. But there is only ever one such figure, as if this solitary Monatto is not merely another plague-bearer, but something else entirely, wearing the guise of our familiar servants of death. I confronted Father Benedetto at San Zaccaria about this phenomenon, hoping for spiritual guidance, since my science cannot explain what I have witnessed. But what he told me was the same drivel every man of God spouts these days.
"These are dark times, Dottore,"
he said, wringing his hands.
"The scriptures speak of signs before the end of days, when corruption spreads through the world like a plague, when the natural order begins to fail."
He crossed himself repeatedly.
"Some say that divine judgment is upon us. God wishes to punish us for our sins."
But surely, Father, these are merely...
Merely what? Look around you. Have you ever seen a disease like this? It seems God truly wants us punished. The end times are here, just as the prophets foretold.
I had no answer for him. Tonight, as I write by candlelight, I hear footsteps in the collar below. Slow, measured, approaching my building. They stop directly beneath my window, and in the silence that follows, I hear something that turns my soul to ice. The sound of breathing through a beaked mask.
I morti camminano, con noi altri.
The dead walk among us. A shadow passes across my wall, though I have seen no figure cast it. My candle flame wavers without wind, and now, as I strain to listen, I hear those footsteps again, no longer in the street below, but on the stairs of my own building. They climb slowly, deliberately, pausing at each landing, as if the climber knows precisely where he intends to go. Second floor, third floor. They continue upward. My apartment is on the fourth floor. I should flee, but my limbs will not obey. I should call out, but my voice has abandoned me. I can only sit here, pen in hand, and wait for whatever judgment approaches. Someone knocks on my door. Once, twice, 3 times. Then silence. I dare not answer. I dare not even breathe. Minutes pass, or perhaps hours. Time seems to have lost all meaning. Finally, I hear the footsteps retreat, descending the stairs with the same measured pace. But I know with absolute certainty that this respite is temporary. I have been marked, and when the Monatto returns, I will not have the strength to resist what he brings. If anyone finds this account, know that I fought against the call as long as I could, but the dead walk among us. And soon, I fear I shall walk with them.
El me stende la mano e vedo che il guanto non c'è un guanto, ma pele trasformata in qualcosa che sia uomo che altro. He extends his hand toward me, and I see that the glove is not a glove, but skin transformed into something both human and other. Capisco tuttora la scelta c'è mia da far, ma so che la farò. I understand everything now. The choice is mine to make, but I know I will make it. I must. My name is Dr. Marco Ricci. I work at the World Health Organization Emerging Pathogens Division. Today is October 15th, 2019. Time is 15:15. I just finished reading Vivarini's account. All of it. Jesus Christ, what did I just read? Alessandro was right. This has to be fever-induced delirium, a dying man's hallucinations. It has to be. But the details? Vivarini describes symptom progression that doesn't match typical bubonic plague. He mentions patients who deteriorate within days, rather than the usual week-long progression. Aggressive respiratory symptoms combined with traditional bubonic manifestations. That's what I'm seeing in Wuhan. Rapid progression from mild symptoms to severe respiratory distress. The efficiency of transmission that doesn't fit normal patterns. What if there's a medical explanation here? Vivarini describes this Monatto handling corpses, touching multiple bodies without proper sanitation. In 1630, they had no understanding of bacterial cross-contamination. What if this guy was accidentally creating a new polymicrobial infections, taking plague from one body, then anaerobic bacteria from decomposing corpses, mixing them together, so you'd have plague plus, I don't know, necrotizing fasciitis from rotting flesh, possible clostridial infections, multiple bacteria attacking the same patient simultaneously. That would explain the rapid deterioration and the unusual symptoms that didn't fit normal plague progression. Dr. Marco Ricci, October 16th, 2019. Time 2:15 a.m. I cannot sleep. I keep thinking about what Vivarini wrote, and I'm not even sure why that phrase stood out for me. I morti camminano tra noi altri. The dead walk among us. It takes me back to that day, to what she told me, her desperation, her clinging to life. Yet I left her behind. I survived, and she didn't. I need to shake this off, do some work. The key issue here is that Vivarini's clinical observations don't fit standard plague progression. Patients who seemed to recover from plague then relapsed with what appears to be completely different, more virulent infections. All signs of possible polymicrobial infections or comorbidity. Armed with this information, I can try to do a more targeted search by cross-referencing historical medical databases. Okay, I'm in, waiting for the results. Wait, look at this. London, 1665, Great Plague. There's correspondence from Dr. Giovanni Ramusio documenting unusual case clusters. He's writing about patients who showed signs of multiple simultaneous infections. But here's what's strange. He's writing these letters to Antonio Vivarini, but Vivarini died in 1630. These letters are dated 35 years later. Why would someone write to a dead man? And here's another hit, Philadelphia, 1793. This shows up in a citation reference to a broader epidemiological study. Mitchell, S., 1990. Anomalous mortality. Clustering in historical and contemporary epidemics. Johns Hopkins Medical Journal. But when I try to access the full paper, it's not available online. Not digitized. 3 completely different primary pathogens. 3 different centuries. 3 different continents. But the medical patterns? Rapid progression. Polymicrobial infections. And in each case, there's mention of a solitary medical practitioner associated with the anomalous cases. I think I'm coming down with something. My throat's been scratchy all day and I feel strange. Hot, but not feverish. Like my skin is too tight. What if there's a common bacterial cofactor? A persistent pathogen that's been hitchhiking with major epidemics for centuries? Something that creates these aggressive co-infections when combined with primary diseases. What if Vivarini wasn't documenting supernatural events, but documenting the world's first case study of a multi-drug resistant superpathogen? I need to find that Mitchell paper, the full version. I'll have to check the physical archives. They should have the microfilm collection at the National Library of Medicine. I need to check them. I need to know.
And so we leave Dr. Marco Ricci staring at the translated pages of Antonio Vivarini's diary, his mind racing between scientific rationalization and growing dread. He has found a medical explanation for the mysterious deaths in 1630 Venice, or has he simply found what he needed to believe? But Marco's investigation has only just begun. For buried in historical archives across continents lie more accounts, more patterns. What will Marco discover when he traces this thread through the centuries? Join us next time for the conclusion of Il Monatto, where Marco will face a choice that no amount of medical training could have prepared him for. If you dare to delve deeper into these eldritch mysteries, subscribe to our podcast, leave a rating and review, and whisper of our tales to others. Your engagement feeds the book, fueling the terrors yet to come. Until next time, and may your nights be sleepless and your dreams unsettling.